All right. What's up, everybody? This is Ed from This Day in Metal, and today I'm joined by lead vocalist and guitarist from Conquest, Derrick Brumley. Derrick, what's going on, man?
It's good to be here, my friend.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. The band's new album, Paradox, was released on April 19th on CD, vinyl, and all streaming services through Dark Star Records. I've listened to it a number of times, and it really has like a classic feel to it with that a bit of a modern flair too.
Yeah.
Um, what went into making that record? What tracks stand out to you? What are you most proud of from the new record?
Well, I like it all, man. Paradox was a labor of love over the COVID years. And then also, um, Tim had left the band, my previous drummer, due to physical, he had to have some surgeries dealt with. And then comes into the band. So it changed the flavors here and there a little bit. But overall, it was about a 2 year run of putting this whole thing together. We had some songs with Tim, and then when Lee got in the band, we wrote some more tunes. So we had a bunch of tunes, and then we already had the concept of the Man on the Silver Mountain thrown in there because we like to do that just for fun, more or less to pick a track. And that was one I've always wanted to play when I was a kid. So it found itself on the record.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, obviously, you want to focus on the original material, but one of the first tracks I encountered from that album was "Man on the Silver Mountain," and me as a huge Rainbow fan, I dug right into that. Is there any particular reason you picked that track? And is
Well,
there
as you
any
said,
influence that the band has had by that era, that Dio era of Rainbow?
so on me for sure. So I was a huge Rainbow, especially of that era with Dio singing. I'm a huge Dio slash Halford slash, that's my vocal who I inspire to, if you would. So Dio for me with that record, my gosh. And then you could take the next record, with the Long Live Rock and Roll and all that on there. It was just those were masterpieces to me. So like I said, we always in the last few records we've always picked a tune and that maybe somebody else might have done but not done always to the extreme. So we did that track. I tried to add our own flair without destroying the melodies, to the song.
I think you
Um,
did it justice.
keep it heavy. You got to keep some of that direct Dio in there, otherwise you're just why do it, right? So
Absolutely.
that's how it turned out. I think Mike did a great job. Lee did some killer drums with it, and the melodies that Rob brings in on the bass is always strong. So
Yeah, no, I felt the same as you, and I feel like that era of Dio, especially when you look at like classic rock in general. Like when I was growing up, I never heard that on the radio. I had to go to other sources. I heard it on metal radio, but I
right,
never. It's sort of overlooked. So it was nice to see that in metal circles, it's well known, but to the masses, not really.
I know,
So
right? And it's so weird that that's the way it is, but it is. So
yeah, it's definitely strange that way. What significance does the album title have, if any? You called it Paradox.
well, everything on the record has a counter to it. So every song has a parallel to me. Um, the times that we live in, a lot of that's reflected in the music. Um, the countercultural dysfunction that we live in now, where when I don't know your age, but when I was growing up, man, we didn't have all this hatred. They said we did, but we didn't. People were friends with each other. It didn't have it all like we have now. So a lot of that's in the music, and I try not to bring up a particular religion or a particular political movement, but I try to base it all upon what I consider standard moral compass. And we were all rebels back when we were kids, but we weren't out slicing people up and selling people fentanyl and all that kind of crazy stuff. So different world. And I think this record uh, embodies what's going on.
It really does come through a lot with, I was going to actually ask you where you get your lyrical themes from. And it seems to me that a majority of the songs on there are social commentaries. And I do understand what you're saying. It is kind of different than even when, I was younger. Things are definitely different. And it seems like people are more divided. Um, and I'm hoping that we can, I think through things like music, things through, things like that, we can kind of move through that and hopefully get to something that unifies us instead of, it seems like everybody's further and further apart these days. So
Yeah, and I really credit that. Like if you get into Babylon America, you'll hear how I denounce the press, and that's not a political thing. That's a reality. The whatever your local channel is, when you turn it on at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, most of it's BS and most of it's propaganda, and uh, the average person, goes to work, comes home, and flips that on, and they catch the news, what they call it, the news, and after months and months and months and years, they start believing it, right? Kind of like we must space 6 feet, you know what I mean? That silly thing, which did nothing, nothing. Do I want people to die? No. Do I want anybody ever to die? No. But some common sense would go a long way in our world. So the record kind of represents that. There's a lot of songs under World of Hate, Babylon America, the writings on the wall. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty clear what I'm talking about.
And you do it all and deliver it. And I have to say, your vocals, like when I first heard them, they really remind, like the first thing that came to mind was Priest to me.
Oh,
And
okay. Well, thank
you
you.
can tell that they're a big influence on you.
Oh, there's no
Um,
doubt. The Priest, like I said, Priest, Dio, Rainbow, very huge in my life.
yeah, I think I read in a prior interview that one of the biggest influences on you was Sad Wings of Destiny. Um,
Big time. Big time.
yeah,
I mean, that
which is
changed
classic Priest.
that changed me. I mean, what I mean? Like I was always into music. My brother, 4 years older than me, his girlfriend one time came over when I was a little kid and left the first Black Sabbath record, on the turntable. And I went in and turned it on, and it was like, whoa, okay. That brought
Uh-huh.
me over to here. And then, like I said, when I heard the dual guitar playing and just the overall vibe of the Priest record, it changed my life.
Clearly. And I mean, I think that's reflected. I heard a lot of that. I hear a lot of dual guitar on the album.
Definitely.
Um, the production, which you handled, correct,
I did.
is
Yeah.
very slick. Every instrument comes through very clear. I think you guys got the exact feel that you were looking for. Is that one of the advantages to producing your own record because you can take the time with it and kind of make it what you want it to be?
Well, it's also a big love of mine. I love production. So, yes, to answer your question, but sometimes other producers can pull things out of you that you can't. But I've been doing this full tilt, and I'm my worst critic. So I think that I try to make records that aren't fake. In other words, we can play this live. You know what I mean? We can go out and do this and sound like that record for the most part. And I think that a lot of bands, when you get in the studio, you jump off the cliff and you hope that you're going to have a soft landing, and then they don't.
Yeah.
So we try real hard to make a record that we can perform live, and that when you put it on sonically, as you said, you can hear the bass, you can hear the drums, you can hear the guitars, the vocals, the harmonies, blah, blah, blah. But it still has a little bit of a rawness to it. You know what I mean? It still reminds you of when you were a kid. Because I think in music today, when you go over to like, your XM radios and all that, and you're going over to Octane and you're listening to what they call the new hard rock and all that, it's all produced the same. The sounds are the same. The singers could be intertwined. I mean, there's a lot of the same thing.
It's hard
So
to
I
tell
run
one
this
from the other.
right.
Yeah.
So I try to run as far away from that idea as I can.
Yeah, and I think that absolutely comes through. There is a rawness to it. Like I said, it's got that classic feel. Like when you were describing how, you found that Sabbath record and then that's a gateway to other things. Like it reminds me of that. Like when I was getting into metal and I was listening to, your Priests, your Maidens, and going from there. And then everyone kind of goes in their own direction. You can find death metal, you can find black metal, different
That's
things
right.
like that. But this has a feel to me, just it's true to that original, and it reminds me of, when I was young and I was getting into it, and
Thank
it's
you.
refreshing to hear that in this day and age because you don't really get that anywhere.
Well, again, that's why I appreciate all you guys spreading the word for us, man. It's not easy to do in today's climate, especially if you're not a kid band, because if you're not a kid band, they don't want you because they know you need a dime back for it. These kid bands get signed with no money, no deals, and that's why they're here today and gone tomorrow for the most part. And you ever notice a band will go up a tier, and then all of a sudden they get a new drummer, Then they go up another tier, and all of a sudden they get a new bass player. That's because there's no money, and those people start falling off the game and going on and living life, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
sadly. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of bands like that, depends on their skill level, obviously, but it's tough these days, especially with rock and metal. It's
it
tough
is.
out there to break through.
It is.
Um,
And
you
and I
know,
don't take it as a racial thing, but I truly believe that rock and hard rock, heavy metal has been, on all mainstream media formats, and that we've been pushed to the back. I mean, heck, Metallica can't even hardly get main press on some of that stuff. And when you stop and think about it, how ridiculous that is,
that is ridiculous. I mean, people in the know I mean, have played their new album, but you'd hardly see it anywhere on the radio,
right?
you know?
Why? Why?
I don't know. It's a great record.
There's at least 3 or 4 songs that can be in steady rotation and keeping the vibe alive. I mean, if this was 1998, 99, it would be, wouldn't it?
It'd be on TRL.
That's right. That's funny.
So you
You're
talked
right.
about pulling off the songs live. I know you guys have a show in about a week in St. Peters, Missouri. Have you been rehearsing for that? Do you have any larger tour plans to support the album?
So yes and no. Yes, we've been working on that. Yes, we're working on some tour stuff. Our stuff will be more strategic. We won't be out for a month or something like that unless something really cool happens. Never
Mm,
say never when it comes to, how life goes, because as you know, we don't know what tomorrow holds. So,
absolutely.
never say never, but we're fishing in the kind of out in the logical world, trying to pick up 3 and 4 dates here and there with some good little runs, and get out to the people so they can hear us play this new record.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. If you have any plans to come to New York, let me know and I'll
Oh,
be
for
sure.
sure. I mean, we'll probably get up that way again. Right now with the craziness, and the fuel prices, man, it makes it awkward.
It's very difficult to pull off.
It
I
is,
agree.
without some type of tour support, and record labels aren't really big on that these days. So, they do their best. Dark Star's been good to us, so I have no quarrels there. But it's just a different time, so you got to pick your poisons, and when you go do it, and where you do it at.
It's a shame too, because I feel like that's the place where a lot of bands make their money. You know what I
Oh, it
mean?
is.
Touring, selling merch,
Merch
things
is
like
merch
that.
is the biggest one of all, man.
Huge.
We can walk in and get a couple grand to play, and then as a band on our level, and then sell $1,500 worth of merch. It's like, oh, okay, well, we actually made a dime tonight. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So, that's kind of the way that works. This is for the love of music, man. I give up a long time ago thinking I was going to mortgage my house off the music industry. Everybody's got another gig, otherwise you won't have no money. If you want to live in a little apartment somewhere, you can probably survive playing music. But I like to live a little bit too,
absolutely. Don't we all?
right?
Yeah. So we talked about Priest before. Your bio on the website says you shared the stage with Halford at one point.
Yeah,
When was that exactly? And can you describe what that experience was like for you?
sure. So back in 2000, when it was Queensryche, Rob Halford, and Iron Maiden, uh,
That's a hell of a lineup.
there's an amphitheater out in Earth City, Missouri, which is several hours away from me. But uh, we were called to play the night before with LA Guns. I think it was Warrant and maybe Rat. I don't, whatever it
Okay.
was. And we were going to open the show. And I said, sure, we'll come do that. So we went and we did it. And we were backstage loading gear and all that. And they go, hey, don't put your stuff away. Come talk to me for a second. So I grabbed the manager at the time. We walked back there and they said, keep your stuff here. You guys are going to play tomorrow night too. The band, I can't remember what they were called. They were brand new. I can't remember what they were called, but they were the opening band traveling. Well, the guy got locked up. So we got the spot, right? So we got to open for that night, which was very for me, Queensryche, Halford,
Yeah.
Iron Maiden.
I
I
mean,
mean,
how that's a hell of a trio right there.
really, I mean, at that point, you know, what's left? I guess you could say Metallica,
Maybe.
Megadeth, but for me, Priest, Halford, and it was on the Resurrection. Remember the Resurrection record?
Yes, of course. Yeah, that was a great album. He actually did a song with Dickinson on that album.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the one
Well,
you love to hate. I was thinking about that yesterday when I was
totally
preparing for
great,
this.
great record, great songs.
Yeah,
So that was a great time for the band. So
that's awesome, man. And any interaction with him or anything like
no, I
that?
didn't get to there, but in the back, are you familiar with it was a convention called what was it called back in the late '80s out there in California? Concrete Foundation.
Hmm.
Remember that?
Yes.
Priest played there for Painkiller,
Okay.
and I met the band at and Rob was kind of a little buzzed in those days, so it was a
Okay.
different story than how it would be today for sure. You know,
Yeah.
good times. I'm not a star kind of guy. In other words, I love all my heroes, but I know they put on their pants like I do, and they hit their elbow, it hurts.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean a whole lot to me other than to talk music.
Exactly. Yeah. Like anytime I've ever met anybody, in that realm, which has been
Yeah,
rare, it's been like, hey man, thanks so much for the music. Like I don't know what I'd do without it, you know?
yeah, and you'd be surprised. That means a lot. People think that oh, you're great. Oh, they really want to hear about the tune. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The music. So that's for sure, no doubt about it.
So I'm assuming there was no time you were ever starstruck by anybody.
No, I'll say just because I was so looking forward to the very first time I met Dio. Um, it was kind of uh, more of a happy, joyous thing. I didn't
Hmm.
realize I knew he was short, but I didn't realize he was as short as he was. And I'm not a tall guy at all, so from that perspective, it's like, oh, okay. So I started off with a chuckle, right? And then he gave me a hug, and that kind of made me feel cool because it was Ronnie James Dio. So that was probably the closest thing to that for me.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds awesome. I got to see him one time and that was enough for me. Like I actually got to see him perform, which thankfully, because he's no longer with us, but
Right, right.
it was just incredible. It was just, everything you'd ever wanted to be.
Totally. He was that guy. Easy to talk to. Um, yeah, good times.
That's awesome, man. Um, in a previous interview, you were quoted as saying that Pantera really saved metal in the 90s. And I think I saw something on your website that you had played some kind of maybe a memorial for Dimebag Darrell. Um, is that accurate?
So I do believe that Pantera saved heavy metal through the '90s. I mean, who else was really? I mean, yeah, you could point at a lot of bands, but I'm talking about that had the flavor or the style of, say, Edward Van Halen and Alex Van Halen with the brother thing, and then you got an obscure vocalist who's not really a good vocalist, but has this overwhelming sense of inspiration and
Yeah.
charisma being in Phil, with a in the pocket bass player. I mean, to me, Slipknot was not that. Um, Sepultura was not that. All good bands, but did not do that.
No, and they were one of those bands I feel like that kept ascending as they went on through the 90s. And and it's unfortunate that you know, things happened the way they did. What do you think about what they're doing now with the reunion shows?
So, I mean, calling it, if it was me, I'd be doing a tribute to Pantera is how I'd word it. Without Vinny and Dimebag, to me, um, it's just Phil out there singing the songs. And Zach Wild's a great guitar player for Zach Wild, but is he playing the tunes the way? I mean, the hooks, kind of, yeah, sort of. I mean, I use this analogy. I'm a pretty good vocalist. I'm not great, but I'm pretty good. I could sing any Queen song ever written, but I would sound nothing like it. So why do it?
That's a fair point. You make a strong case. And I know I did check out the your Under the Influence record where you kind of covered
Yeah,
kind of and you did do a Pantera cover on there and I
yeah,
think you did
sure.
justice. You did it great. I mean,
Well,
it
thank you.
was authentic. It was your own flair on it and
Definitely.
so when you say you can sing all those songs like that, I tend to believe you because you did on that album.
Yeah, right. So knowing that, right? It's like, and I seen it. I went to the Metallica show. big Metallica fan, and I seen it. And let's face it, Hetfield's not a great vocalist, but he's the right guy for the band. It sounds good. He's great. He's the hookmeister. Anybody who says he can't play guitar should just go sit down.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously,
I agree.
downstroke
I
like
agree. I
James.
saw those shows as well, and I concur with your assessment.
Yeah. So and again, I'm not putting the Pantera guys down. I don't blame anybody for going out and playing and wanting to play music. So I just wouldn't call it Pantera. If it was me, I'd say we're gonna call the band Mouth of War or something like that. And the first round, I understood it was an honoring thing. But if you're gonna continue on and you even think about making music, let's call it something else.
All right, fair enough. Agreed there. Well, I also read that when you got your first guitar, you traded a
Yeah,
hockey stick for it. Is that true?
that's true. That's
Okay,
true.
so are you still a hockey fan? And if so, who's your team?
Well, I'm a St. Louis Blues guy. Of course, I'm a hockey fan. Till the day I die. You know how that goes.
How big was that 19 Cup win?
That was amazing. We were starting to believe we'd never see such a thing. So for that to occur, it was awesome. We went to all the events and the whole game, so it was great.
That's great. That was a great series. And one last hockey question. Who's your pick for the Cup final? You've been following it all?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm so torn. I
It's a
want to
tough
say,
one.
what's your take?
My take would be I think the Panthers are going to take it. They're a pretty complete team, but you never know. Connor McDavid's one of the best players ever. So, it could go either way, but I'm pulling for the Panthers.
I'll go with you because I just think they're a more rounded team.
Yeah. Plus
The
the
Panthers.
goaltending, I think.
Well, goaltending for sure.
Yeah.
But the other guys got the ability to have the spark from time to time. So we'll see.
Absolutely. We'll see. It should be a good series. All right. I was interested in that. That one stuck out to me. I'm a big hockey guy. I had to ask.
No problem there ever on my end.
Any other things you'd like to say about the album, about the new album? I mean, it's out on Dark Star Records. It's been out for a couple months now. Like I said, I've listened to it a number of times. I'm very into it. There's a little bit of everything on there. You got, your straightforward rockers. You got a little bit of a mix. I even think there's a couple ballads on there.
If you want to call them that, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, World of Hate's got some of that tone in it. You got a song called "In the Heavens," which
Yeah.
is which is a really cool tune. Me and Mike worked on for quite a bit. He had the initial hooks with it, man, and which made it strong. And then I said, from a producing standpoint, let's do some octave things with that, which we did. And
Yeah.
we started picking up the guitars and then the strumming thing. So anyway, super cool diversity. We love all that. And Paradox available everywhere. Conquestmetal.com, obviously, and then all this anywhere you can buy music. Go buy the vinyl. If you're a vinyl person, please go buy it. CD person, go buy the hard copies. It means a lot more to us than we love the downloads. Don't misunderstand my words, but I like you to buy that hard copy.
I don't know if you could tell I'm a vinyl guy if you look behind
I
me.
see it.
Yeah,
I
so
see it.
I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna go get one myself because I've been
I
streaming it, but
appreciate
I'm
that,
gonna
man.
go out
Means a
there and
lot to the
support you
band.
because
Thank you.
you guys are carrying the torch for metal, so we love that. That's what we're all about.
So when will this air?
This will air probably as soon as I can get it up on the website. It'll be on
Gotcha.
YouTube, and I'll write an article about it too, kind of summarizing what we've been talking about. All right,
Awesome, my friend. Well, I sure appreciate you.
Derrick, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. Thanks so much. Keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
My pleasure, Ed. And you keep it up too. All right.
I'm gonna try my best. All right.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
All
Thanks,
right.
my friend.
Thanks, man.
Peace.